doing our Get Into the Property Groove 2017 campaign throughout January, and we're going to be finishing on a really great finale because I'm delighted to welcome back property entrepreneur Jason Harris-Cohen, who we've met before. But Jason, I thought it would be so great to catch up with you because you're such a dynamic, forward-thinking entrepreneur. When we met you last time, you were buying around 10 properties a month, and now into 2017, I'm very interested to know if you're going to be changing strategy, what your kind of buying levels are going to be this year.
Well, thanks, Vanessa. It's great to have come back again, so thanks for inviting me. I think for last time we met, we were buying about 10 properties per month. Since then, we've had a substantial increase to our portfolio, so we're currently holding about 65 properties. What we've done is we've actually refined our focus, so we're now focusing on quality as opposed to quantity. So our buying levels are fairly steady. We're actually doing a lot of new build development now, so we're focusing now on sites and using our expertise in our build cost and structure to be able to actually maximise values of sites. So identifying opportunities, looking to increase the planning gains, so potentially buying a property where they've got planning permission for one house, looking at how to get the maximum GDV, and maybe splitting that into two or further backland development to increase the value of the site. We're finding that we're focusing on England a lot, looking at infrastructure improvements focusing on areas such as HS2 and the benefits that's going to bring to the Midlands. We've also been following the Crossrail stations, and we're still investing close to the Crossrail stations where we still feel we can identify potential growth areas. We're finding that we're moving slowly out of London and moving more to growth peripheral areas, especially the home counties that are still becoming increasingly commutable. We've seen in a lot of the London boroughs the introduction of the 24-hour underground lines.
The night tube,
and that's actually been fantastic. We're finding that area buyers are now, especially buyers who work in sort of hospitals and things like that, it's fantastic to be able to finish a night shift and still jump on the tube to get home at whatever hour of the evening. So what we're doing is we're really focusing on that quality assets. We want to be very professional, respected landlords. We want to increase our portfolio of well-presented housing stock, using the latest sort of advances in construction materials, such as still installing boilers with longer warranties, 10, 15-year warranties, installing the latest A-rated double glazed windows, making sure that we're using quality fixtures and fittings to sort of mitigate our management headaches. We're finding that so many common problems come up as a landlord, such as condensation and mould, such as broken boilers. We want to make sure that we look after our customers, and our customers are our tenants essentially. We buy from landlords and homeowners who want a quick and hassle-free property sale, and a lot of the times we then rent them properties back to our tenants. We want our tenants to stay with us for a long time. We want them to be happy, and we know they're happy when we don't hear from them very often. So the way that we do that is by making sure that they've got good quality homes to live in, and we're really looking at sort of increasing our exposure in the private rented sector.
Well, of course that makes sense, Jason, because a property is most people's greatest asset, and if they don't maintain it, it could potentially go down in value, not to mention may not be even compliant for tenants. So I think it's great that you've really reiterated that point, that it's important to maintain properties at a high level. I'd kind of like to crawl inside your head a little bit in respect of when you go to see a potential acquisition, what are the things that you were looking for? What pops up to you and you think, this is potentially a good property to buy? You're seeing the angles all the time, aren't you?
That's a very interesting question. Sadly, I get extremely excited when I go and see a property, especially when I turn up and I see a garage on the side with nothing being used above it. And instantly, it lights up. Wow, can we sort of add value there? Can we potentially build over the garage? Can we potentially go back further? Is there actually possibly we could remove the garage, have a side access road, and potentially do a backland development if there's the depth on the garden. We're also always looking at ways to maximise the value of our properties, and if the sort of area warrants it in terms of it's financially viable to sort of increase the square footage, add floor space, ultimately that adds value to the property. So we're always looking at the best ways to potentially carry out a single story or double story extension, potentially a loft conversion, potentially reconfiguration of the internal space, even on leasehold properties, perhaps subject to getting landlord's consent and a licence for works, reconfiguring the area, turning an unconventional layout into a conventional usable layout and maximising the appeal of that property. So for example, open plan areas, we're finding that a lot of the home buyers we're selling to recently, they want that sort of kitchen dining area, that big room at the back, the entertaining space, that's most important. So we're looking at always ways to maximise the layout, the appearance of the property, and also the size of it, really. So massing, if we're buying a site for development, what's the maximum massing we can get on this site? Can we get, if for example it's got 1 unit on the moment, can we get 2? Can we get 3? Can we buy a neighbour's property and maybe get 4 or 5? So there's always that way of just looking at the property, maybe even consulting with your colleagues as well, because 2 minds are better than 1. So there may be something that either they or I've missed, and therefore the more advice that we get and the more eyeballs that look at the site that we're looking at, ultimately the more potentially.
Indeed, and from everything you've said, clearly freehold houses are going to have a lot more development opportunity than leasehold flats.
Certainly. Sometimes when we buy leasehold flats, what I will do is approach the other leaseholders. So when I'm buying a typically converted building and there's just 2 flats, 2 maisonettes, I will sometimes approach the other leaseholder and see if they want to sell their property. Sometimes the benefit that enables me to do when I own more than 50% of the building is to enfranchise. And then I can approach the freeholder and potentially serve them a notice to buy the freehold. That then gives me an opportunity to add as much space subject to planning permission as I want. I can then add square footage to the ground floor flat by building an extension. Recently we've done a lot of situations where we've bought 1 bed and studio flats and turned them into 1 or 2 bedroom flats by enfranchising and buying the freehold. We've also looked at ways where we can add another flat in the loft. So if there's a first floor flat and maybe it's a 1 bed, 2 bed at the moment, we can potentially create a loft conversion and turn it into a 2 or 3 bedroom flat. In some areas of London where prices are up to £3,000 a square foot, every square footage you build creates a massive financial uplift.
Indeed. These are really sort of exciting projects that somebody with your experience can undertake. And for the Property Tribes audience, perhaps we're looking at not a lower level of activity in the refurbishment area. What advice would you give to somebody that wanted to do a basic refurbishment to get the maximum uplift? Where should they spend the budget? Is it kitchens and bathrooms?
I feel most importantly kitchens and bathrooms. I think people like the gimmicks and people want to be able to see the sort of going above and beyond, making sure you focus on quality worktops perhaps, even if it's not necessarily stone or wood. And using a laminate, you can get a real good quality laminates and composite materials now, which I'd strongly suggest just spending further time researching, going to various retailers, even looking abroad perhaps, investing in quality taps, using decent shower valves, in the kitchen, going a bit above and beyond on the flooring material, perhaps using some of the latest sort of Cardine and various other manufacturers' materials. You can get some really great materials and colours used to improve the colour palette when you're renovating a house.
Yeah, definitely, and really make it stand out in the photographs.
That's
which
it,
will help with
exactly.
the marketing as well if you're going to sell. I think just to finish, Jason, you come from a family of entrepreneurs and property developers and property buyers, and your family, I think, have been in the business for 30 odd years. You have this whole raft of experience, but one of the questions we're getting on PT at the moment is, for newbies starting out, is buy-to-let still viable? What's your view on that?
I think if you are getting into buy-to-let, I would strongly advise that you ensure you have sufficient capital to be aware of there will be a rainy day. You may find a month where although you've earned a few £100 on your rental income, the boiler then blows up, and that's then going to cost you nearly a year's rent to recoup the loss that you've incurred. Unfortunately, you may find that in year 2 you have a roof leak, and you've got to either re-roof or spend several £1,000s installing scaffolding to just partly refurbish a roof. So there can be so many issues, and you need to be aware that on average we find that we lose about 25% of our gross rents on expenses. So that would include management fees, compliance checks, the annual gas safety inspection, and electrical checks when you want them doing. Also, most importantly, on repairs. So every month we have numerous problems, including issues relating to condensation, including boiler breakdowns or complete installs of new boilers, replacement boilers. Electrical issues. We look to always, when I generally buy a property that I'm going to rent, I normally put in a new consumer unit if it's not up to latest standards. I will try to put in a new boiler as well with a 10 or 15 year guarantee, so that I have peace of mind initially that the most important issues are resolved.
Yeah, no, I think that's good advice.
If the property's single glazed, I'd immediately budget for double glazing. Firstly, it will reduce the cost of your tenants' bills, so there's a financial saving to them. Secondly, it will ultimately enhance the value of your property. So although it's a bit painful up front, having the initial outlay of installing double glazed windows, essentially when you sell that property, in whatever year it may be, it's going to have a massive benefit for a buyer when they see that you've installed double glazed windows with Fenza certificates and hopefully a warranty too. So I feel that what I invest in my tenanted property, generally, I will get back when I come to sell it.
Yeah.
So it's an investment ultimately.
I totally agree.
And I think you need to invest in your customers, and as a landlord, your customers are your tenants.
Yeah.
And you need to be mindful of that.
Yeah. Agree 100%. And clearly you would recommend that people get tax advice and make sure that they're going to buy in the right structure for them.
Correct. I think certainly with all the latest changes, as we've been discussing earlier, such as Section 24, it's now more important than ever to buy in your limited company, to make sure that if you are especially a higher rate taxpayer, you're not affected by the changes from Section 24.
Well, thank you very much, Jason. I always love catching up with you. You've got so many interesting things on the go. You've got such a good view on everything. And thank you very much for your contribution and support of Property Tribes.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Vanessa, and thanks everyone for listening to our talk today.
Thank you.